Oh, look at the time. What's up, everybody? What's up, Reefer Revolutionaries? It's 420 in California. This is Reefer Revolution Live.
But I think in terms of marijuana, and legalization, I think that should be a state issue, state by state.
I think in terms of marijuana,
I think
too.
it's up to the states, yeah. I'm a states person. I think it should be up to the states, absolutely.
Well, you like the States Act.
I know people that are very, very sick, and for whatever reason, the marijuana really helps them.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Well, the good people up on the Hill gave cannabis banking and hemp farming their day in the Senate. And we've got a new bill making the rounds. Also in the Senate, we've got more safe states for cannabis. Will this go further? Military raids in California roll up thousands and thousands of plants and unpermitted grows and dispensaries, flash grenades, MRAPs. It's at the camp raids all over again. Did you know camp still existed? And there's a new federal cannabis lawsuit in town. Now the scientists are going after DEA and HE Bar.
This is the time to go all in on
Oh,
cannabis.
we're in too. And so are the people over at Weed TV, the Cannabis Media Network.
You want to witness some real, actual history? Back in the day, George and a few of the founding fathers did have hemp farms, because they knew the meaning of hard work and integrity. But then our country did lose its way and began a war on drugs that was and still is just a war on people. And then a bunch of young corporate banker types come along telling us we're all in the new normal, as they try and turn God's green miracle into an easy buck for themselves. They even hire fancy Hollywood directors to make them look all hip and cool. But you know what? Fuck those guys.
Yeah. Fuck those guys. What's up, Reefer Revolutionaries? It is indeed 420 in California. This is Reefer Revolution Live, the show where we spark up, talk about marijuana in the mainstream media, the politics of pot, and cannabis news. And when I say we, all the amazing folks jumping in the chat. Woohoo! I love it when the chat is filling up, baby. I love it. And of course, I'm talking about my partner in all things life and cannabis, Coach Chela.
Hey guys, hey everybody.
What's going on? Hello, it is Coach Chela and DC. We are having some network bebops, so let's hope we're not buffering too much. I just saw a little yellow and a red thing going on. So hopefully our network won't give us too many problems. What's up, everybody? Everybody's jumping in. Fuck those guys. Vegan Metro. Yeah, that's South Park. Looks like they are, I don't know. I think the South Park guys are actually getting into the weed game. It looks like we're going to have Integrity Farms. Hey, you know who's got no integrity? That John Boehner. No integrity. Yeah, so obviously they came out this week with that little video poking at MedMen. And we are going into the red on the network. Dang. Let us know if we start buffering too much, guys. We'll cross our fingers and hope all things continue to go well out here. It's pretty hot out here in Southern California, but not so much that it should be causing these darn network issues. So we will sally forth, however, saying hello to some folks in the chat. Vegan Metro, of course, I just said Gypsy Lady Lee, home from work. Nice. Laura P's in there. Cannabis Sativa back in the chat. I don't know how Cannabis Sativa got out of the chat, but he's back in the chat.
Don't do that.
Don't kick anybody out of the chat, guys. If it might have been us accidentally, I don't know, because those three dots over there, you can do things when you have a wrench. Mostly we gave the wrench to so folks would share links. Folks want to share links, and also sometimes we had that party, and folks if we're not in the chat for some reason, to moderate the chat, and bring attention to it for us, and don't abuse your wrench if anybody has. I'm not even saying anybody has really, but our apologies, Cannabis Sativa, for getting you booted out of the chat somehow. Welcome back. We welcome everyone in here to talk about cannabis and cannabis news and giving it to the man in revolutionary ways. And we got really big news this week about giving it to the man. We were at an amazing event yesterday.
Sticking it to the man?
Sticking it to the man, not giving it to the man.
Oh, yeah, okay. More like it.
Sorry, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear.
And to be clear, we're going to stick it to the man, not give it to the man. We don't want to give it to the man. That's what the taxes are all about. And unfortunately, we're giving a lot to the man every time in California. Not so bad in Colorado, I think, but I think it's really ridiculous out here and in most places. Anywhere, they just really it's all about the greed. So welcome everybody. Mick88 is in there. Let's see. I saw Debbie D, Small Tubes, Dylan, Chris jumped in. Thank you, brother. We did go live a lot this week. Of course, the hemp hearing this week, and the cannabis banking hearing in the Senate. And you can watch all of those in our style over there on our channel. We broadcast them because they were super important. We knew they were coming. We talked about them last week, and they were really fascinating. The hemp one in particularly was really super fascinating. You should watch that entire hearing, from the absurdity of Mitch McConnell introducing the panel or the whole hearing to the amazing information about hemp farming. That's coming out of Kentucky. So really, really a fascinating hearing. And then, of course, the cannabis banking hearing, also we broadcast here. You can go back and watch that. All about the money, trying to get the banks want their cannabis cash. And it's, of course, being couched in security and in safety, public safety, and tax evasion, and, black market issues. So fine, that's where you're going to couch it. That's where you're going to make legitimize this business. Okay, and we talked about it yesterday, Chela. We went to an amazing event yesterday, which we're going to clip up in a bit. We have a lot of video from yesterday's cool event, but this was a topic of conversation yesterday at Microscopes and Machines. Before we get into the news, you want to talk a little bit about how cool that event was yesterday?
It was really cool. It was special because they brought people in from the cannabis manufacturing, not necessarily like farmers and growing, although there were farmers there. Oh, yeah. But mostly manufacturing and processing and creating products folks, and doctors and researchers. And they had two different rooms with two different tracks, basically. One was all like the medical stuff, which of course is where we were. And then the other one was all the advances in manufacturing and the changes and compliance and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really great. It was a really unusual venue, one that you don't usually like. These things are usually in like hotels or stuff like that. This was a really cool venue, very unusual.
Yeah, the space was really phenomenal.
And I really liked that the organizers made use of the space and acknowledged where the space was in relationship to the city.
And where exactly was that?
It's in downtown LA, right next to Skid Row. A lot of these things happen in downtown LA, which is close enough to Skid Row that I think every conference should give 10% of their proceeds, like this one did, to organizations that are helping to connect people on Skid Row with services and things that they need.
Absolutely. And that was definitely one of the amazing ways that a lot of these cannabis companies and advocates and folks that are trying to create this industry fairly and equitably. There's corporate cannabis, there's MedMen, there's all those guys that are coming in from the top, wanting to get their cannabis cash and get in on this after they're reaping the benefits of the war on drugs. But it was a really cool event. The event itself was, it was just...
And the food was all vegan.
And it was all, yeah, Vegan Metro. It was all vegan. And
all vegan.
Some of the best Indian food I've ever had in my life.
And they didn't discuss it. It wasn't like, oh, and it's vegan food. It was just food and it's vegan.
Food and it's vegan.
Yeah. Like the chicken club sandwich. I'm like, oh, I'm vegan. They're like, everything's vegan. I'm like, oh, okay, great. It's all good. So yeah, it was cool. It was really a very high-minded event.
It was high-minded. It was high-minded and a lot of fun and great information. I mean, we were fortunate enough to be able to capture many of the panels that we couldn't be. We wanted to attend and record, but we couldn't be in two places at one time. So we focused mostly on the microscope end of it. which were some amazing topics. The first conversation was by Dr. Pierre Joffre about medical cannabis. Geoffroy, sorry. About medical cannabis at the bedside, patient experience and long-term care.
Of course, it brought me to tears. I was just beside myself. He's a doctor from Canada, and in Canada, of course, you guys know that cannabis is legal federally, but it doesn't really, he is working with people with Alzheimer's disease and dementia, but not as much as like Dr. Hergenrather and Dr. Grobe in Northern California. And he's doing some great work in Canada, but super conservative with very CBD dominant, but also having some good successes. So I'm hoping to connect more with him and connect him with Dr. Hergenrather and Grobe so that they can all talk about their progress and what they're seeing in their practice, because people living in nursing homes deserve access to this life-changing medicine. Everybody does, but people in nursing homes are like they're in geriatric jail. They can't leave. They can't think for themselves. Well, people with memory issues, people with dementia. You guys know that's my thing. Anyway, so Dr. Geoffroy was that guy, so I was thrilled to be there for that. And then Dr. Sue Sicily, who we're going to see later. I don't want to get too much into it.
Because we're going
to get into it.
Right,
so.
and I hope we can get into it. I've lowered my bit rate a little bit. We're having some buffering and some networking issues, so I hope it's not too crazy out there. But it was really an amazing event. We're going to have lots and lots of video from those clips from those panels. Future Cannabis Project was there, so the entire panels in both rooms are going to be up.
Yeah, that'll be
and if
great.
you guys don't know about Future Cannabis Project, check them out on YouTube.
For sure.
Peter covers and gets some of the most amazing panels and some of the best information about what's going on, especially here in California.
Totally.
So please check out Future Cannabis Project. And we are going to, at 5 o'clock, get into Dr. Sicily's panel that was really an amazing... We saw some of the videos from Dr. Sue Sicily from the Emerald Cup that we captured last year, and there's actually more of that to come. And now that we have a new game in town, folks, we have a new federal cannabis lawsuit in town. Of course, we're fans of federal cannabis lawsuits, as you know, on the show. And there's a new one in town, and starting to be reported here in July because it was just filed. And the scientists are now coming after the DEA and AG Barr because for a year now, more than a year, officially since the Trump administration has come in, scientists have been and congresspeople have been lobbying or pushing the DEA to authorize, first with Jeff Sessions and now with AG Barr, to authorize more manufacturers, grows of basically
federally approved cannabis.
Federally approved cannabis for research.
Yeah.
The only federally approved cannabis for research. So
it is at University of Mississippi.
That's right.
NIDA.
That's right. NIDA weed. And if anybody's doing any any official research, which are very few in the United States, but if you are doing it, you're doing it with this crappy, moldy NIDA weed. And we're going to see what Dr. Sue Sicily had to say that. And what is the current status of that lawsuit. She updated everybody yesterday at this conference. So we're going to take a look at that in the 5 o'clock hour. Very exciting. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It's now, so now we're pushing. Hopefully we'll see. We're gonna take a listen to what AG Barr said about this. He seemed to not know much, and certainly things have not moved forward. So we're gonna watch that clip in this first hour too. But welcome everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm very distracted by the constant changing green, orange to red light on my OBS because of the network. So
okay.
People in the chat, if it gets too weird,
what's going on?
You see the buffering going on over here?
Yeah.
I'm having network issues.
All right.
But we're going to press forward because that's what we do. Unless it completely shuts down, I'll have to restart.
Oh. It turned into something.
It turned into something.
Well, then I definitely won't share it on Facebook yet.
Yeah, I mean, we're like full red right now. We're dropping 10% of our frames.
Okay.
Hopefully it's not too crazy.
Why don't we reboot? Or redo?
I don't know if that's going to fix it. So I'm just going to...
Okay. Press on.
We're going to press on.
Okay, so do you want to talk about the news before 5 o'clock?
I think we should. We're going to talk about the news before 5 o'clock.
All right.
And if anybody does hate their Twitter, the new Twitter, I also hate the new Twitter. I'm with you. I'm with you on the hating of the Twitter. I was like, what's the problem? Why is everybody complaining about the new Twitter interface? It hasn't happened to me yet. I guess it happened to me because I freaking hate it now. One more reason to hate Twitter. But that's where I...
They're jamming our signal.
That's where they're jamming my signal is right.
We should sue like everybody else.
But the new Twitter is unfriendly and even more of a social disease. But I do most of my tweeting over there, and apparently it's really the only place you can tweet officially. So that's where I put out the news as it comes. You can follow me at DC420LA over there, and as the news comes in throughout the week, I tweet about it, send it out, and then we collect it over at DC420LA.com, a Cannabis Chronicle. Take all the week's news, put it in a newsletter, send it out sometime Sunday morning when my alarm goes off. Or I wake up and push the button. And you'll get just one a week if you want to sign up for it. Otherwise, you can just jump on over in a new window, a separate window, if you want to follow along as we talk about the news of the week over at DC420LA.com. And follow us also on Twitter over at Reefer Rev Show and at all the socials. All the social platforms. For now, you can follow us at DC420LA and at Reefer Rev Show. So, let's get into the news, shall we? We are going to get into this headline, of course, in the 5 o'clock hour. So I am going to step over this Westworld article. Why a federally licensed marijuana researcher is suing the DEA. And Dr. Sue Sisley is going to tell us herself in the 5 o'clock hour from the Microscopes and Machines conference we were at yesterday. So stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, up on the hill, y'all, top congressional chairman and presidential candidate file marijuana legalization bills in the Senate. On the heels of the historic hearings last week by Nadler with regards to cannabis and the other committees in the House. This week we have the Senate hearing about banking and hemp, and we have a co-sponsored bill introduced in the House and in the Senate, the MORE Act. The MORE Act. Senator Kamala Harris trying to gain a little ground, I'd say, with the cannabis vote, if you will. Chela, what do you think? Is this merely pandering to the Cannabis 2020 vote? No comment?
Ugh.
No comment.
Of course.
Of course.
What is understood need not be spoken.
Need not.
I know it's a chat show, but
we have we have the MORE bill, the MORE Act.
I'm glad she's making people talk about it.
Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act.
You know, all good things. I'm not saying any of that's bad. I just find it irritating that she's, like that.
So now we have more states safe in the Senate about cannabis. You think they're trying to send us a message? More states safe. More safe states. Keep saying it over and over again. I'm telling you.
More safe states.
Now you combined all those to where Marijuana Opportunity and Expungement Act, right? You take that part of it, you put it with the States Act, which means, leave the states alone. They've passed their bills. We're not going to spend any money. And the SAFE Act, which means the banks can actually do business. And these businesses, small to large, can actually do business. And you can actually sell CBD in Tallahassee, Florida, without your credit card merchants being shut down, or in California, Or if you can sell CBD in California without your merchant bank being shut down, which happens all the time.
All the time.
With just CBD companies.
People have no idea.
So I think you take the More Safe and States Act and you combine them.
To a super bill.
To a super bill, and you call it, say with me, everyone.
The Trump Act.
You're supposed to say the name of the bill first.
Okay, sorry.
Before you say the punchline.
All right.
That's the way it worked best last night at the one person I told the joke to.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Rewind. Pretend you didn't hear me.
Zzz, take it back. They just take all those bills and they combine them into the Total Repeal of Unjust Marijuana Prohibition Act.
Ah, the Trump Act.
There you go. Much better timing. Thank you.
Good, good. We should have rehearsed.
We should have rehearsed. This is improv. This was improv. Listen, the editing department has been feverishly cutting together the clips for the 5 o'clock hour.
I'm like, so I haven't been doing anything.
I didn't have it. What are you talking about? I have a paper edit right here, guys.
Okay.
I have
Is
a
that
paper
what
edit.
I was doing?
I have a paper edit of the here, start here, play this, do this, play this. This is too long already. I'm like, no. We were fast and furiously cutting together a show.
Do you have any more news to talk about? Because you only got 15, 16, 17 minutes.
I know. Hey, listen, we're all right. Well, let's talk about some more news. I want to talk. I want to talk about our new babies at some point too, but we could do that later. I want to introduce everyone to our babies, but we'll talk about a couple.
Where
more.
are they? You left them outside.
I'm going to go bring them in. I was running around. What can I tell you? So there it is. Rolling Stone. It's picked it up. Senator Kamala Harris introduces law to federally legalize and tax marijuana. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's in the bill too.
Uh-huh.
They want to tax it 5%? A federal tax.
5% of it needs to go to those things.
No, but I think they want the tax to be 5%, don't they?
Oh, it's got to be more. No, because
the other
5%
bill,
of it is going to...
The 420 bill is 15%, up to a 15% tax.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I read this was 5%. I could be wrong about that. But they want to... listen, any tax is going to be it's a non-starter. It's not going to help your cause, people. The taxes are part of the problem. This is why you're not transitioning into your legal market. You need a tax holiday. You need a tax moratorium in these states that are legalizing. You need to do it without, please. Well, it depends on what you want to do. You need to find a balance, I guess, of what you want to do. If you're not getting the taxes that you want. Look at Colorado. Okay, they just hit $1 billion in tax collection since 2014. They have a relatively low, as I recall, Chela, last time we were in Colorado, we were pretty impressed as to the prices, right?
It was well priced.
Well priced. So I don't know if they're starting.
But the base product was well priced.
Yeah, they're starting with a low base price, which they were talking yesterday about how cannabis prices have just dropped. Now, I guess that's the wholesale prices.
Yeah, wholesale prices.
Because they certainly have not dropped in the retail. No, they have not.
No. Well, you can get a pack of pre-rolls for like $40, but then there's 30% tax.
Yeah, if you can find that, and that's
You can find that. You can find that.
Yeah,
but that isn't great
it's
for
not even
medical
an eighth.
patients.
It's not even an eighth of product.
Sometimes it is. You get a pack of joints for an eighth.
It all depends on the brand. Lowell's?
Of course, it depends.
I guess
on
Lowell's
the brand.
is Lowell's
Jesus.
$40.
No, but Lucky 420s is $40.
Right. That's true.
And Henry's.
Well, these brands have to find a way to get a more wide distribution into the network, because you don't see there. It's really haphazard as to where these brands are and where they're being found. We don't go into a lot of dispensaries, but I don't see a lot of these brands in the dispensaries that we do go into.
Ease has a low priced model, but they, I understand, make it hard for farmers.
That's right. They're the Walmart of cannabis delivery. It is not necessarily great for the producers. It's really, you've got. It's a real conundrum. It's a conundrum.
But time out. Medicine is not taxed.
Correct.
Medicine
Shouldn't be.
is not taxed.
Shouldn't be.
And people who use lots of cannabis are usually using it for medicine because it makes them feel better when they use it.
Right.
So, therefore, why are you taxing my shit?
Well, for instance,
It's
there's a tiered tax structure. I think is it in Nevada or Colorado? There's a tiered, or one of the new states maybe. It's a tiered tax structure, but based on the level of THC in the product. So if you're buying a product that's under 35% THC, you pay a lower tax. If you pay a higher THC, you pay a higher tax. That's ridiculous. The patients need the higher THC products. That's the whole idea.
Some patients do.
Some patients do.
You know?
So there should be no taxes on any cannabis medicine. But unfortunately, it came out today, new frontier data. You know, apparently the only data collection place that I've seen really that's doing any meaningful or at least high level collection of data in the cannabis industry.
No, but Laura is
35% decline in patients where recreational cannabis is legalized in the States, an average decline of 35% in medical patients. And you were saying we haven't, necessarily been on Johnny on the spot, redoing our medical recommendations because of adult use. And a lot of people say that is because, people don't have to have Rex anymore because they can just go and buy it.
Yeah.
And I suppose but 35% seems a pretty high number.
Well, because it's costly to see the doctor to get your recommendation. The card is costly in itself as well. Like if I wanted a state card, it's $200.
Right.
On top of going to see the doctor for $100 or whatever. And then if you want to buy an extra little prop, I don't think it's actually like a thing, but a little prop that looks like your official, it's another $25. So it's costly to have a card, and then it saves me 15%?
Right, if that.
If that, in some places.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm going to maintain my medical status because I want to show that these fucking polls that there are still lots of people who use medical cannabis. Plus, there are a couple other perks, like you could grow more plants and things like that.
And you have and it helps if there's a legal situation.
Oh, I can smoke anywhere I want.
Right. Well, anywhere that smokers can smoke.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah.
And
I can smoke anywhere. Smoking is legal.
And in your car in a parking lot.
That's right.
That's right.
Because smoking is legal. Yeah. So that's a good reason to have your medical card in California. So,
okay, there is a couple other pieces of news that I want to talk about before we get into our 5 o'clock hour. So I'm going to get on it.
Go on.
I want to get on it. Yes, we saw that South Park seems to be taking a jab at Mad Men. We'll attempt try to play that whole video in the afterburn. But in case you didn't think it wasn't going to happen in legal California, it's back. The camp raids are back, folks. Let's see this one.
What are camp raids, Dave?
Oh, the camp raids. Well, back in the 80s, and 90s too? 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
There was an organization known as the California Campaign Against Marijuana Planting. CAMP. And they were getting lots of funding. A lot of, this whole funding of police departments with military gear and stuff became very popular. As a way to get rid of old military gear, and that transformed into new military gear. And camp raids were pretty notorious all throughout the Emerald Triangle, and particularly. And they're basically back now that they have lists and maps and satellite imagery. And a governor who is willing to use California state funds to crack down on the illegal grows in I guess if they're in the forest, they're illegal. And they're chopping down trees. They are definitely illegal.
Water.
And they're diverting water, and they're
also
endangering frogs.
They're also doing it on people's private land.
Well,
where families are growing.
That's part of it. That's the thing, is that this they're using the environmental degradation, the environmental crimes, and the grows that are down. By the way, they are down. The grows, the federal, the grows that are happening in national forests in California and around other states as well, Colorado, their operations are down. They're not finding as many grows as they used to. They are definitely going down. But, this is Operation Clean Sweep. One of them, results coming out of Lost Coast Outpost. You can read this story at the Chronicle. Operation Clean Sweep results 42,638 weed plants destroyed. 603 environmental crimes documented, 1 nearly endangered frog affected. Here are the highlights. On July 19th, Operation Clean Sweep concluded in Mendocino County. This is Mendocino, one county. And a debrief was conducted, which developed the following information about the operation. Search warrants served, 28. Search warrants served. You need to serve a search warrant in a federal forest? I don't think so.
No,
okay.
It must have been families.
So that must have been a farm, probably. Locations of search warrants: Covello, Round Valley, Dos Rios, Woodman Creek, Iron Peak Road, Simile Road. Marijuana cannabis plants removed, 42,000. 600 crimes. Impending act of water quality, 142. Independent acts impacting water rights, 197. California Department of Fish and Wildlife violations observed, 264. Observed acts of environmental degradation, water stream diversion, water pollution from trash, pesticides, and generator fuel, illegal. Now, everybody gets pissed at this, and everybody should. This is bad stuff. Nobody wants this going on. But this activity in the forests is a result of prohibition. Let's be clear. This is be very clear about this. We have legalized cannabis. We have not made cannabis, we have not decriminalized cannabis in the state of California. And they're talking about that up on the Hill in this bill. What is the difference between legalization and decriminalization? And guess what? There is a big difference. And what we have in the state of California and going on around the country is legalization. We have independent acts, small acts of decriminalization happening on city levels, in community levels, and counties, but statewide, you're seeing legalization. Federally, you're seeing now push for legalization and taxation. So you're not talking about, but the MORE bill, the MORE Act, apparently is more geared towards decriminalization. So that debate is going on, and there is a difference. So nobody wants this environmental degradation. Nobody wants to hurt this frog. Although if it was a coqui frog, I would not be as worried and upset.
They say still not to hurt them.
But don't hurt them. But this is going, and okay, so here's another example in the Chronicle this week. California overall. This is all the dispensary halls of, quote, black market. California seizes $30 million in black market cannabis from illegal pot shops. This is in let's see, what is the period of this? First 6 months of the year, the Bureau served 19 search warrants on unlicensed sellers, confiscated more than 2,500 pounds of illegal marijuana products with a retail value of $16 million. According to the data released last week, the state also seized $219,000 in cash from illegal pot shops. Well, guess what? Oh, I should have been having this up there while I was talking about this story coming from the Los Angeles Times this week, guys. You can click on that over at the Cannabis Chronicle. California seizes $30 million in, quote, black market cannabis from illegal pot shops. So that's the entire state. And I want to play this video. This came from, this is a great source, Hezekiah Allen, Chela. This is where you get a lot of this sort of independent journalism and stuff that's going on underground up there in the counties, because of course Hezekiah is very much involved in all of the growers up there. So some of this information is coming via him. And also, redheaded black belt this blog coming from the Emerald Triangle. Should definitely check it out. FBI helicopters, more join massive law enforcement raids in western Trinity County. Coming out of Trinity County, you can see the FBI photos here. I'm going to play a couple of these videos, but here's a close-up of an MRAP, basically, one of those tasty little federal vehicles that the local jurisdictions love to get. And actually here, Chela, what do you think should be done? We're talking 42,000 pounds of plants in one county. We've got all of this product being pulled out of these dispensaries. What do you think we should be? First of all, we probably shouldn't be doing that, but since we are, what do you think?
Obviously, we should leave it alone. But if the government insists on doing such draconian things, I think we should collect all that medicine, test it, make sure that it's kosher and not poison. And if it's good, we should give it to those who need it the most. People living with dementia, of course, people in nursing homes, veterans, homeless, poor people who need it the most. That's too much medicine to just go to waste. That's my feeling.
And if it comes back hot, if it comes back hotter than strawberries, go ahead and dump it. But if it doesn't come back as hot as strawberries and you're letting people in California eat those strawberries, why don't you let people make medicine out of all of these plants that you're destroying? Some of the most amazing, or you know what? Tell you what, give it over to research.
Yeah, give it to research.
Give it to research. Give it to universities and give it to
study it.
Independent organizations like Dr. Sue Sicily's independent organizations. There are one of the things that she talks about in her presentation at Microscopes and Machines is that you don't need to go through this, this bureaucratic university system. You gotta, if you want to do the federal stuff, you got to use the ditchweed, which they're trying to change. But you don't have to go through the bullshit universities. You can do finally they ended up going through independent review boards, private independent review boards to do their studies with private groups. So it can be done outside of the university system. But hey, let's take all of this weed that you're getting in all of these ridiculous raids. Since you say, okay, they're not licensed. Okay, great. Well, let's give it to the university, have them test it, send it to a lab, see if it's got pesticides in it. If not, test it. Let's research it. Let's give it to the veterans groups. Let's give it to cancer patients. Use that stuff because you're gonna play your games. I know you love your chippers, but
no, use them for something else.
Yeah, use it for something else. And let's just take a thank you to Redheaded Black Belt for posting these videos.
She does great work. She posts all kinds of great stuff. Kim
Kemp is over on YouTube. And these, I'm going to play a couple of videos. This is one from Philippe Pejovic, probably mispronouncing that. But this is just a little look at the show of force. Some officials, some authorities coming off of a property. Let's take a look at this. Truck after truck of sheriffs and coming off of a property, held on the highway, making the rounds with their equipment and their chippers. Now I'm gonna play one more here.
They ain't got no integrity.
That's right, they got no integrity. They got no integrity, boys. Going out there, you know who else ain't got no integrity? These guys right here using flashbang grenades and their MRAPs to go after some medical cannabis growers.
Really? Fucking really? What kind of fucking shit is that, man? Weed growers. Y'all gonna play fucking military games on a bunch of fucking weed growers, man. Fuck you people.
with you, brother. There's that MRAP.
Yep.
Zooming in on it. That was a flashbang grenade. And that's them going out again. So those videos posted courtesy, thank you, Redheaded Black Belt, News, Nature, and Community throughout the Emerald Triangle. And she's been updating, they've been updating their coverage of all the stuff that's been going on in the counties up in Emerald County. The Emerald Triangle with these basically, it's the camp raids all over again. Camp raids light, maybe. And of course, coming together with the, going into the forests under the cover of that. I don't think that's not intentional. It is. Nobody wants to see that going on. So, but they're like, oh, you guys are going to go in and run out of the forest? Okay, we're going to go in and clean up everybody else too. You know, facts on the ground. So that is going on. Don't let that's something else that was said yesterday is, it's nice to see that patients aren't getting locked up. Well, maybe patients aren't getting locked up, but anybody growing for any patients are getting locked up. Or at least, maybe not, nobody was actually arrested in that one story about, Operation Clean Sweep. They did not arrest anybody, in that yet. Everything's pending. Pending.
Soon there's going to be a protest in Sacramento.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, soon there's going to be a protest in Sacramento protesting these military-style invasions of cannabis grows. It's crazy. So we're going to head up for that. Hopefully it'll be in enough notice that we'll know when it is and we'll be able to be there for it. So.
Absolutely. We are definitely, if that materializes, Reefer Revolution Live will be there to see, and we're going to try to get as many patients that need this medicine to be part of that.
Yeah.
Because that's what did it before. Right? Chela?
Yeah, that's what drives change, you guys. I mean, Dennis Perone and the AIDS movement and using cannabis to help people living with AIDS is what convinced so many voters to vote for Prop 215 and stuff. So I feel like we can't forget that patients are the drivers of these things. There's a fly flying around.
I've been trying to get that one. I got one. I got his brother, but the other one I haven't been able to get.
So, yeah. Jilly Love says they don't usually arrest. Wage unpayable huge fines. Growers abandon property. Cops profit.
Word.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So yeah.
So, Jilly Love, you're in the thick of it, right? That's for sure. Cannabis Sativa. At least California had a craft scene. East Coast, except has been big cannabis from the jump. Excellent point, Cannabis Sativa. Actually, it's trying to survive with the likes of Jilly Love and Hezekiah Allen and a lot of the distributors up there that are conscious of what's going on. Flo Kana comes to mind, of course, trying to work with the California way with the small growers and trying to pass co-op laws here in California so cannabis cooperatives can work, and trying to, get these ridiculous dosage laws and labeling laws in check. It's exciting, but it is very challenging. And I really hats off to anybody who's trying to, still grow cannabis. And, because a lot of people have given up. A lot of people have it's too much. I don't want to go. We're going to stay underground. And this is a lot of probably what you're seeing going on. There's a lot of the ones who are holdouts. They're trying to put a damper on that. They're trying to say, look, get legal. You get legal, you pay your fines, you pay the tax and regulate scheme, like good boys and girls, and we'll leave you alone. Because they made a very good point of that. No licensed facilities, Cal Cannabis licensing inspectors will be participating in the Operation Clean Sweep, according to their press release. Cannabis farms that are licensed through the California Department of Food and Agriculture's Cal Cannabis Cultivation Licensing Division will not be the focus of this operation. So that was the previous press release from the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office. So they've got a list of all of the legal places that have paid their fine, paid their dues, paid their...
Hey, we got a little scoop-de-doopty here.
Yes,
ready?
go,
Read
baby.
from
Break
the
it.
chat.
Breaking news. Breaking news.
Illegal growers also black market. No oversight at harvest.
What?
You think? Shocked. There's gambling in Casablanca? It's
You
traditional market anyway, please. You can never control a plant. That's the problem that they have with it.
We visited a...
It's the best.
We visited
it's the best.
a...
Keep doing what you do, growers. We love it.
We visited a licensed grower in Nevada, an indoor giant. He was building giant warehouses, just tens of thousands of square feet. And we were looking at how much can we were saying how many because somebody was trying to get a license or how much could we get trim for, how can we get it, how can we get plants, can we get plants to start growing, blah 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 blah. And no problem. He said, well, how do we get them to the facility? I got to hire somebody, right? You got to hire somebody that has the right license to transport. He says, no, I just moved the tag from recreational from adult use to medicinal. And if the tag says medicinal on the plant, anybody can take it. So there's a story
like that.
It's just like that. There's a story in the Afterburn today, guys, that coming out of Oregon, that literally there are two identical plants in two fields right next to each other. Identical cultivar, exact same cultivar. One is licensed under the hemp laws and one is licensed under the cannabis laws. And it's a completely different structure, and it's really interesting. So stay tuned for the Afterburn for that. But now it is 5:00. So we're going to get into this story.
Yeah.
We're going to get into this story and play a little video from yesterday's amazing presentation by Dr. Sue Sicily. This article, which you can read along in the or if you want to, read after the show, in Westworld, but you can get it over at Cannabis Chronicle. Earlier reported about this lawsuit the beginning of July over at Marijuana Moment. Kyle Yeager reported, and I'll get into that in just a second. But the title of this story, written by Thomas Mitchell for Westworld, Why a Federally Licensed Marijuana Researcher is Suing the DEA. Dr. Sue Sicily holds the rare distinction of being licensed by the Drug Enforcement Administration to study marijuana. So why is she suing? Why is she suing the DEA over its marijuana research policies? Of course, Sicily is the president of the Scottsdale Research Institute, which I believe she created. And in June, they filed a lawsuit in the U.S. Court of Appeals. They filed suit in the U.S. Court of Appeals, that's interesting, for the District of Columbia, asking the Attorney General and the DEA, so it's not just the DEA, it's the Attorney General, be ordered to process its application to grow marijuana for clinical research. In the filing, Sicily claims that the DEA has created a monopoly around federally licensed marijuana research by requiring that researchers only use marijuana from the University of Mississippi for their studies. She says federally licensed marijuana researchers are limited to low-grade cannabis without proper variety.
It really should be a class action suit amongst all the researchers.
Maybe it can be. Maybe it can be transformed into a class action lawsuit. This has been a problem for a number of years, forever actually.
Since the beginning.
Since the beginning.
60s.
Since the beginning, the only research you could really do was finding the harms. If you wanted to do research here, you can find the harms. Couldn't do that. But there is some research that makes its way through for the benefits. And when you do, you have to use this monopoly weed from NIDA, grown in one farm in Mississippi. And from day one, the Congress, rather the DEA and the AG of this administration every administration from the beginning of time hasn't changed this. So I'm not blaming only just this administration, but we knew Sessions was no fan of cannabis. So it became an issue right away at the beginning of this administration, with many scientists saying, look, them being one of them saying, hello, and legislators saying, we need more weed. Better weed. We need better weed for research. We can't deal with this anymore. There are 24 applications sitting on your desk. Prove one of them. They were one of these applications for them to grow weed.
Prove some of them, please.
Prove some of them, any of them. It doesn't matter if it's them or not. He says prove something. And this essentially, so Jeff Sessions gets fired. We're yay! We danced in the streets. We literally stopped, pull over the car.
Literally
interrupting our trip to brunch at
we checked in.
We checked in.
It's a funny check-in.
That's right. We were so excited that Jeff Sessions was gone. We knew we weren't necessarily knew what was going to happen. But what happened was AG Barr. And also no big fan of cannabis, to say the least. And he did, in his hearing, in his confirmation hearing, saying, essentially, I'm not changing any rules about that. We're not going, we're not going to bother with the states that have legalized. But he was like, I'd prefer, we might have to do something if something doesn't change. Kind of a veiled threat, really, in his hearing.
You want to play it?
Well, I don't want to play the whole hearing, but I do want to play this 40 seconds.
Yeah, 40 seconds. Play that.
Barr talking about, talking to Schatz about this question of researchers and the problem with what's going on with cannabis research. So let's just see if he seems interested at all in this.
A year ago, Attorney General Sessions said, we're moving forward and we will add fairly soon additional suppliers of marijuana under the Controlled Substances Act. I've sent 2 follow-up letters. Where are we on this?
I have been pushing very hard over the last few weeks to get that process underway, and I think we're going to move forward on it. I think it's very important to get those additional supplies.
Can you assure me that I'm not going to be here a year later asking the same question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, it hasn't been a year.
3 months.
It's only been a quarter of a year. But there certainly has not been any movement. And that is the only statement really he's made with regards to this. Now, granted, he's got other problems going on.
He's busy doing stuff.
He's busy. He's got other stuff he's got to deal with up on the hill. But this was the original reporting from Marijuana Moment over there. Of course, catching the scoop. Kyle Yeager, on July 3rd of this month, scientists sued DEA over marijuana cultivation application delay. And really, ultimately, enough is enough, as they say. But part of the problem was apparently they couldn't really find a law firm that would handle the case until they went to that frontier state of Texas. A law firm in Texas saw one of, I believe. Well, we're going to hear what I think we're going to hear about it. I'm not sure if it's in the clips we edited down to. But Chela, why don't you set up, talk a little bit about what we saw yesterday from Dr. Cicely in her presentation, and just kind of set up a little bit the clips that we're going to take a look at with regards to this issue and the lawsuit.
Well, pretty much it's her saying all the things you just said. But we get a better feeling for who Dr. Cicely is and see her badass nature. She spearheaded a really remarkable study for those of you who may not know or may not be familiar with. She's persevered and was able to do a study for veterans with combat-related PTSD with smoked flower. And she was trying to get that all through, and she did. It was double blind. It was like all these hoops that she had to go through, and she had to use this garbage weed. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with her story because she's told this story at pretty much everywhere she goes for the last 7 years. This is what happened. It's taken forever to get all the people and all the things. So. I'd like to just let's move into the first clip because we should just let her say it. I was just giving you a little time to help me get to the clip and where it was the point I wanted to play it. So I'm ready to do that now. Oh, super. Let's go. All right. So, God, what does he want me to do? So we're going to pick up Dr. Sue Cicely in mid-conference
from our little vantage point here at the Microscopes and Machines conference that was yesterday.
You'll be able to catch the entire thing on
Future Cannabis Project.
Future Cannabis Project, and yeah.
We'll
maybe on EdCan.
We're going to be playing some clips from it that are, of course, relevant, and this one certainly is. This panel, this presentation, we got a couple of things. Let's play this first group, and we'll come back and we'll talk about the information that we get from Dr. Sicily. But it's quite a challenge. Here we go.
Politics in the university. It took me 7 years, though, to get this, what they call the scientists call this the golden ticket, because it allows you the privilege of purchasing cannabis from our federal government. And so 7 years, I finally got the approval, moved to order 8 kilos of cannabis, which was required for our study. And suddenly I'm thinking, surely this would come by like armored truck or something, but there's the FedEx guy shows up at my door he has no idea he's even transporting cannabis. He's like, why all these cameras here? I was like, well, this is really historic day. We waited so long for this. But I was, so disappointed to open up this cooler and see, basically this was frozen cannabis sitting in the lockers of the Research Triangle, frozen for years. And you open up these sandwich bags, they have no information on them. They don't tell you anything except the CBD to THC ratio. So normally when I do clinical trials, I always get a drug master file that tells you all the properties of the study drug. No, there's zero transparency on that. You do not get access to the drug master file, despite us suing before, sending FOIA requests, all of that. So this is also another thing that handcuffs scientists, because we have no idea what's really in it. And we have our own analytical labs, a DEA license to do the analysis, but we decided we wanted to send it out to an independent lab so nobody would fault us for this. And you can see this is the material. This is pictures on the top from years ago. Many of you know Ethan Rousseau sent me these pictures of his study drug, and you can see how depressing this is, that this is the material. It's basically a concoction of stems, sticks, seeds, leaves, and some flowering tops, but this is the most recent batch that we got on the bottom. So you can see what happened was we started criticizing the government about this, all this extraneous plant material weighing down, because remember, in clinical trials, you issue study drug to patients by weight. Right? So they may get 2 grams a day, 3 grams a day, but if half of the weight of the study drug is all of this junk and not the actual flowering part of the plant, then you see how that already sabotages your study from the beginning. So after all this criticism, they didn't like scientists criticizing their study drug, and they said, all right, we're going to grind it into a powder, so now you can't even discern what's in it. Very clever of our government, but we still know, you can still see all the fragments in there that show this is no better than, Mexican ditchweed, really. But you can see when we sent this out to these independent labs, we ended up finding excessively high levels of mold in all the batches. And we went back to NIDA and University of Mississippi and said, what was your mold testing? Ours was over 100,000 CFU of mold in all the batches. And they said, oh, we've never tested for mold. And so I was like, wow, this is really, mystifying that they've never thought. They're growing outdoors in Mississippi. It's like a formula, all the humidity there. It's a formula for growing mold. But they never tested for it, and only when we brought this to light, we shared our summary report. We ended up doing 3 different rounds of independent testing, all showing sky-high levels of mold. And sadly, this is the only federally legal supply. So think about that every single study done in the U.S. that was looking at flower has been forced to use this lousy study drug. And I want to just give you some good news, though, is that so after 10 years.
So you got your moldy, frozen ditchweed grown in Mississippi. Mississippi ditchweed.
Yeah, that nobody would ever smoke.
In a million years.
If you saw it in real life, you'd be like, oh no, that's not medicine.
I'll pass. Thanks.
Yeah.
But these warriors, real warriors, some of them wouldn't even quit. It's like, no, I want to continue. Because, it's important. And 10 years. Took her 10 years to get that, and 7 years to get the study finally finished. As she's reported before, that it's, they finally this year, they finally, their final 80th, just 80 veterans.
Cannabis sativa. Misplaced 1 decimal on my taxes and the IRS goes full mafia. But federal government can let people use moldy weed made by them. Yeah, dude.
But apparently, and also apparently it's okay to bring in the moldy weed from Canada too. You can bring in any weed from Canada and study it. They don't mind that. They don't mind you can import weed to study, but you can't use good American weed except for that stuff grown in the Mississippi ditch.
Because they have that monopoly. So she's suing to break the monopoly. Let's play the next group of clips.
I'll play the next group clip. Let me cue it up here, but just to say that it's a monopoly, not in the traditional sense where they're the only ones making any money. It's the monopoly is in not letting real information getting out there and real research and real benefit getting out there and finding out that this planet is amazing.
Yeah.
And is a healing plant, and his medicine is a disruptor, and it's going to take down the big pharma industry. That's why there's a monopoly. It's not because they're protecting any financial interest. Well, but wait, they are protecting financial interests, actually.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. It's a monopoly, a financial monopoly, not for the government, but for the people that pay for your government. The people that pay for your government want to maintain that monopoly. All right, let's continue on. Another clip from yesterday, Dr. Sue Sicily at the Microscopes and Machines Conference. 1700, here we go.
Sadly, I can't share the results of the veteran study yet because we haven't published all the data. We have unblinded everything, and we're pulling this into a manuscript now that hopefully will be submitted to JAMA later this year. But I can tell you that the results are exactly what you would expect from smoking moldy, diluted cannabis. I'm sad to say that I'm not sure people are going to be eager to read these results. So you'll see later, but I think that this is what spurred on. We've been trying to find a law firm to help us sue the DEA for years over this monopoly. And for those of you who aren't aware, University of Mississippi has enjoyed a government-enforced monopoly for now, since 1968. So that's 50 years that they have had the only Schedule I license as a bulk manufacturer. So every clinical trial that we or any scientists do, all the universities in California here, CMCR, UCSD, all these groups have been forced to buy this substandard plant material. Even though you're surrounded by some of the most beautiful flower in the world, you're buying that powder, that green powder. And so it makes me concerned. Pierre just mentioned the National Academy of Science report, and we all know that that report only showed efficacy. It said that there was only strong evidence to support cannabis for pain, nausea and vomiting, and spasticity of MS. But you think about all these other conditions that patients are reporting they're getting benefit from, everything from epilepsy to inflammatory bowel disease. Those studies, there was not scientific evidence to support their use, and that doesn't surprise any of us, right? Because we see what how these studies have been undermined by this low-quality study drug. We see how studies have been subverted by, being forced into fixed dosing. That was one of the things I was most proud of in this trial that we just finished. This veteran study was the first one I'm aware of that the FDA allowed us to do patient self-titration, right? So these PTSD patients need to be able to adjust their own dose. You can't force them into taking, 20 milligrams twice a day, whether they need it or not. That would be absurd, and that would that's what happens with these previous clinical trials is we've forced people and many times take way more than they need. Then they get tons of side effects that, kind of eclipse any therapeutic benefit that we're able to document. So that's where I think these studies have gone wrong. Hopefully all the clinical trials going forward, if any of you out there are thinking about doing clinical trials, I would really urge you to keep on this train of patient self-titration, demand that your FDA, the FDA was very oppositional with this idea initially. It took us months of back and forth with them before they finally embraced it. But believe me, their paradigm is established by Big Pharma, right? So that's what they know is fixed dosing models. So we have to push them to rethink that paradigm and let us look at botanical medicine with a different paradigm now, that patient self-titration should be the rule of the day. And
so, the propagandists are going to jump on whatever terrible results that come from this, but surprisingly, it's not encouraging to what she said about what Dr. Sicily said about what they are going to present. But even based on that, she goes into it, I think maybe in the next clip a little bit about, or will eventually when you see the whole thing, she talks about how there were some, even with the moldy, crappy weed and silly rules, there were still some encouraging results. Despite that. So it's just kind of interesting that even with all of the hindrances of the medicine that they're giving her to use, the medicine does come through in some respect, in many surprising ways, which she gets into a little bit. But any comments on that last clip there, Chel?
It's, just what she says, we all must, stay vigilant about. I love that the curtain is being pulled back on the results of every single U.S. study involving cannabis. That's
right.
Maybe why doesn't show efficacy.
Oh,
might be okay.
Interesting. Gee, well, see, a cannabis really isn't that good. It's not really a medicine. Yeah,
not like it's a miracle.
Not the shit you grow in Mississippi.
No, not that garbage.
Let's use some good Mendocino County. Hey, listen, I hear there's 42,000 plants that were collected from Mendocino County. I bet there's some really good quality cannabis in there that you could be using to test with. I'm sure you could find probably a good portion of it anyway. But no, we have to, Paraquat Kelly, yeah, I do. We have to have that Mississippi nonsense, which obviously AG Barr is dragging, is not making any moves to make that happen anytime soon. I don't think. Unless somebody gets a phone call from somebody that has a number 45 on his jersey. He's a states guy. He's a big states person. States. He likes states. And there just happens to be a cannabis bill with the name states. It's called the States Act. I wonder if that was on purpose. But I'm telling you, more safe states.
More safe states.
More safe states in the Senate.
Could
become the total repeal of unjust marijuana prohibition act. The Trump Act.
You should send that to all of them.
Cory Gardner, who's it? Cory Gardner, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren is on the States Act. That's another presidential candidate.
Yeah.
Tulsi, we know, is on board from our interview. She said she would recommend that. I asked her that question with my interview. So she thought it was clever. She thought it was clever. She could push it. She could rename hers and push it in, or push the combo from the Senate. She could push it in the House. So we could get a lot of these. I bet Bernie would support the Trump Act. Look, and here it is. And there it is. If the Republicans get them to do that, they do that, and then the Republicans get all of the Democrats in the Senate to support the Trump Act in the Senate.
Yeah.
To take marijuana off, to total repeal of unjust marijuana prohibition. Let's see how many Democrats will get on board the Trump Act in the Senate. Listen, I think it's a winner. I think it's a winning idea. But let's move. We in order to get research done, something's gonna happen with the schedule, And let's take another peek at what Dr. Sue Sicily has to say about this lawsuit. Now, we have another. Yes, Microvell would support it. We support Microvell in all things. In all things, sure. I'd love to see Microvell on the debate stage. Gave him 420. I'd give him more if he could even get closer.
Totally. All right, let's play the last set of clips.
Let me just say set that up by saying there's a new federal cannabis lawsuit in town, folks, and Dr. Sue Sicily is at the head of it. So she's going to talk a little bit about where they're at with that, and I'm hoping that's where we are right here.
2016, the DEA announced that they were going to finally end the monopoly and license other growers for research. This was on the Federal Register, so it was a legit announcement. But since then, 3 years later, they have not moved forward 1 inch toward doing this. They have 30 applications sitting on the desk of the DEA for 3 years that have not been processed. They took our application fee, $3,000. They processed my credit card, but not my application. So that's why we were so lucky to find this law firm that has no relationship to cannabis, by the way. They're people that just heard me speak at South by Southwest, and they were so outraged by this suppression of scientific freedom, and they said, you know what, we'll take this pro bono. They spent months researching this and submitted the petition. And it's actually not just against the DEA, but we're also targeting the Attorney General, whose office seems to be the primary culprit here. Supposedly the DEA wanted to move forward, but the DOJ and Attorney General said, no, you're not to process those. So this is essential. This DEA monopoly is really the final barrier to doing legitimate cannabis clinical trials in the U.S. And it's held us back so much because you can see the menu here is so limited. In our study, we basically got to look at high THC batch, a batch of high CBD flower, a batch of 1-to-1 THC to CBD, and placebo. And that's it. So that's the menu you've got. And yet here in the real world, patients obviously have access to thousands of phenotypes. We have a mountain of anecdotal evidence from patients that this is helping them. But that's the problem, is this is not bearing out in these clinical trials because of the disappointing study drug, and the fixed dosing model is really harming the outcomes of these studies. So it's a real conundrum. It's like this catch-22, right? Because here we're trying to reform public policy. We need data in order to do that. Yes, there are thousands of controlled trials that have already been published in peer-reviewed journals, alluding to the efficacy of cannabis for certain illnesses, but certainly not close to enough to persuade the medical community or health departments. We're also snobbish about, we need randomized controlled trials. That is the gold standard, and anything short of that is going to, and that's the challenge with PTSD, right, is that PTSD, all the data so far has been conflicting. We have a ton of observational studies. Some have showed cannabis benefits PTSD. Some have shown it's harmful, that it makes patients aggressive, it promotes cannabis dependence. So there's all these reasons why people were hanging on this trial, hoping that this data would, finally, the first randomized controlled trial in the world looking at this, thought finally we'd have a definitive answer. And so this is the challenge for all of you who are in this movement, to try to keep the pressure on the DEA. The DEA has already received over a dozen letters, bipartisan letters from Congress, and they have not even felt the need to respond. It's amazing. The DEA feels, apparently they're not accountable to anybody because they don't even respond to letters from Congress, not even a form letter. So I was pretty amazed by that, and that's why we move forward with the litigation, because we realize we can't wait on them to act. We've heard references from the new Attorney General Barr saying, oh, we're going to get on that now, we're going to do something, but we all know that all these bills are just stagnating, waiting for, I don't know what they're waiting for. I feel like nobody's interested in solving the problem.
A year ago, Attorney General Sessions said, we're moving forward and we will add fairly soon additional suppliers of marijuana under the Controlled Substances Act. I've sent 2 follow-up letters. Where are we on this?
I have been pushing very hard over the last few weeks to get that process underway, and I think we're going to move forward on it. I think it's very important to get those additional supplies.
Can you assure me that I'm not going to be here a year later asking the same question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, he's got 3 more months to fulfill that promise. And that was the last we've heard from AG Barr on this subject.
I thought this was April.
That was April. Well, I'm sorry, he's got 9 more months. 9 more months. 3 more quarters.
Yeah. So yeah, y'all. So now when
if
they
it was in
tell
eighths,
me,
I'd know how to do it.
When they tell me that a study was dubious on medical cannabis, first I'm going to ask, was it in the U.S.? And if it was a U.S. study, then I'm not going to believe it. Just like I'm not going to listen to any doctor that tells me that cannabis is no good in the U.S. because they don't have any education on the endocannabinoid system or on cannabis medicine in the U.S. So,
well, we can, 2 can play that game, where we basically, if it's a bad outcome and it says, oh, there's no real, it doesn't really do that, it doesn't really prove that it helps that, we'll say, oh, that's because you're only using that Mississippi moldy shake that you wouldn't even use. You wouldn't even use for your frickin' brownies. To give to your neighbor to make your butter or anything. Nothing. Garbage. I'm
not using moldy weed, period.
But if there are good outcomes, we can say, look, despite the moldy frickin' weed, the cannabis came through. Because there are, in that full, you'll be able to see that entire video. I may play the whole thing in the afterburn later. I don't know.
No.
But it's going to be up from Future Cannabis Project. But
yeah.
In that whole video, she talks about some of the positive outcomes that she saw, despite the moldy and terrible weed. It did help in in surprising ways. And you'll see that visual at the Future Cannabis Project when they show that.
Maybe the reason why they allow oil from other countries.
Yes.
And like you said, and only allow the moldy shake weed from Mississippi is to control the flower results. Obviously, it has to be.
It's like
that's the only
obviously
answer.
they're never gonna get anything good from 10-year-old frozen weed.
Moldy
10-year-old
frozen weed.
And she brings up she does bring that up. She says, that there is no ban on importing cannabis oil. So you can bring in cannabis oil from other countries to study. That's what happened with Tilray. We reported when that happened. DEA gave Tilray a special dispensation to import THC cannabis oil to San Diego. And so you can do that. But guess what? The LP weed, if she was saying, find a good LP up in Canada and get yourself some GPP cannabis from Canada. Guess what also is full of mold? And it's LP weed in Canada.
Yeah.
So, but I think there are there's ways to study the real medicine in this plant and not the stuff that they're growing in Mississippi. No offense, Mississippi. Yeah. But
anyway, the whole discussion is amazing. All the things that we saw at the Microscopes and Machines conference was amazing.
It was really cool.
They put together really great panels and discussions, and we are going to be posting them probably to EdCan, maybe Reefer Revolution, I'm not sure.
Maybe both.
But should we bid this first hour-ish adieu?
Are you saying we should get into the afterburn?
Maybe we should.
Where we jump into the MST 420 theater, hotboxing the mainstream media and their coverage of marijuana from coast to coast, from the East Coast. Oh, we don't have any East Coast stories today. No, the Northeast.
That's all right.
No stories in the Northeast. We have stories in the South. We have stories in the Midwest, and we have stories in the frontier states, as well as the Pacific states. Our new buzzword, frontier states. So that's it, folks. This is Reefer Revolution Live, our first hour wrapping up. Thank you to the Reefer Revolutionary Spotlight of the Week. We hope to have Dr. Sue Sicily live on the show at some point. She remembered us from the Emerald Cup, so we're hoping to invite her on and have a live conversation once this cannabis lawsuit moves forward. Hopefully they did. She talks about they have a friendly judge. We'll see. And we'll get a live update from her at some point. I'm sure. I'm confident Chela can make that happen, producer Chela.
Oh, yeah.
So stay tuned for that. And so that's our Revolutionary Spotlight for the week. Dr. Sue Sicily.
We're hoping to get a little grower's love.
Oh!
A little help.
Before we start the afterburn.
Oh, really?
Go ahead and whisper into their ear.
Okay. We're hoping to get a little help from a local farmer planting our new babies. We'll see how it goes. Dave, I think, is bringing our babies in. Here they are. Are you on me? Come over here.
We have clones!
Yay, clones!
We have 2 new babies!
We've got babies.
Hey!
Babies! We got babies.
Oh, we're frozen. Are we green now? There we are.
Yay!
Ha! We have a green crack. Green crack. And no, is that green crack? That's green crack. Green crack.
I'm like, why is he yelling?
But your mic's over there. And that's a skunk with I think a little nitrogen deficiency. But look, they're in little pots.
Yeah, we're not farmers. Julie Love can tell you what's going on with this plant.
Put that there. You keep that one.
Oh, no, give me that one. It's so cute. Oh. Here.
Keep them both.
It's so cute. No, I'll keep them both. Yeah, there's something going on with this. It has some things on it that we're not sure. We just got them a couple days ago.
So there's that on those leaves of the green crack.
What is that? Is that just damage or what? What the fuck?
It might be some type of fungus or something.
Is there something wrong with it? Can we fix it somehow?
And then the other one has a little, I think, nitrogen deficiency.
This one is here. Anyway, we opened the books and the books were just so overwhelming.
Listen, those that say.
Luckily, we have a neighbor who is Akamai in these regards.
Ooh, we're going to have a
Beyonce type neighbor.
Chela is a very powerful creator.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Chela is a very powerful creator.
Yeah.
And we are getting some upfront personal advice on Wednesday on what to do with these 2 little girls and how to best nurture them. And
that looks like powdery mildew. It doesn't look like it's on the surface. It looks like it's in the...
Yeah, you need to, we'll get educated a little more on that because
Here, bring
I think
over
you
a
might be right
flashlight.
I think you might be right about the powdery mildew.
Really?
Yeah.
Bring over a
possible.
flashlight and we'll light it up. So how do we fix that? New babies, welcome, wild, beautiful, looks a bit dry and needs food. The soil is wet.
There's no food in the soil. That's what these are like.
Dylan says, oh no, he was just quoting me. Is that damage or what the fuck? Is that too close? It seems awfully close for focus. Thank you, Debbie D. She says, congratulations. They look just like me.
Ha! One green crack looks just like me. Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to find a good example.
It's too hot.
Oh, it's too hot.
Too hot. Leaves brittle and dry? No. No, not brittle and dry. Oh, I thought it was up. It's up. Turn those lights up, too. You're going to turn on all the lights now. We're totally digressing.
Well, we're going to get into the afternoon.
All right, you're right. It's all right. Okay, so here we go. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody.
I think that might be powdery mold. Is that what you said? So what do you do for powdery mold?
I don't know.
We're going to
Let's
find
see.
out from
That looks like powdery mildew.
powdery mildew. Will Dr. Bronner's work for that?
Will diluted Bronner's work for that? I should ask Grow Sisters.
I think that's a mite thing. But we are actually really super excited that Chela has created some real powerhouse education for us to come up and give us a crash course.
Yeah.
On how to make these babies. We're going to find out exactly what that is on that. We'll see if you guys are right, if that is powdery mildew, because I was in just my scanning of one of the books. I'm like, oh, that looks like, okay, that's a possibility it could be. And then the food, I think you're right about the skunk. I think that's maybe a nitrogen deficiency. That's like the most common thing in yellowing leaves, because the nitrogen goes up to the growth part, and so the lower leaves get they lose food. They don't get as much food, and then those leaves wither and die because the plant is trying to feed nutrients up to the top of the plant. So I think we need to start feeding these babies, start feeding these girls some good stuff. So we're going to talk on Wednesday. Super excited. We don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but Sunday it's going to be very cool. We're going to have a super special interview and some growing tips for non-growers. We asked for it, guys. We said we need to grow. We need to start doing it here on our little tiny cabin in the woods.
Yeah.
And these two little girls came into our life.
Sam.
Oh yeah, big shout out. Where did they come from? Where did our clones come from?
Fish and
Sam.
Fish and Sam
clone these babies, and we are going to do our best.
We are the happy recipients, adoptive parents of these two plants.
And we're going to do our best to not kill them.
We're trying not to kill them.
I was totally stressed yesterday because we were out all day at that microscopes and machines.
Yeah.
And I was really stressed over the heat because I'm like, oh, should I bring them inside? Or they were out in the back patio. They were under they weren't really in direct sunlight, but.
Laura P says being root bound can cause yellowing leaves also.
Okay.
That might be root bound.
So we might, because these are definitely ready to transplant.
Good soil and bigger pots will work wonders. Stand home.
Well, we have, I believe, some of that coming our way on Wednesday.
Shredding, great for soil.
We will listen. But should we should take note of all of these because we are going to mention them during our session on Wednesday.
Yeah.
With our expert grower. That's super secret interview and expert grower coming.
Super secret interview with Beyonce.
One of the Beyoncés of cannabis growing.
Yeah.
An OG cannabis revolutionary.
Mount Washington neighbor.
And as well, they're definitely going to be in our yard. That's for sure. So we're super excited about that, and going to find out how to start this.
Foreground.
Right?
This is nice.
Unfortunately, after Wednesday, that's not going to be able to do that.
That's okay. It's fun for now.
We could.
I'll take it.
I guess we could. You know what? We could.
Dan Niles is saying diluted apple cider vinegar.
Ooh, for the mildew.
I think so.
Okay. We're going to stay away from the neem oil because we've heard some not so great things about neem oil recently. So we're going to stay away from that. But we're still, literally, we're going to find out on Wednesday. We kind of want to stay OG, man. We want to start outdoor grow. We want to stay outside. So we're going to see if our area where we are, we can, if there's enough sun during the day, if it's, we can do that. We don't want to put it in the ground because we got gophers and soil's not great anyway. So we want to get a good all-in-one soil. Although I know we're supposed to mix all your stuff together. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to see what happens on Wednesday. It's going to be. We're literally going into this. I tried to grow 6 plants a number of years ago.
You did a great job.
One time, and 5 made it with a very small harvest. I started them indoors, moved them outdoors. They didn't really do very well at all. I really, literally didn't know anything what I was doing. And I still don't pretty much know either. Every time I open one of these books, I am so overwhelmed.
It's so overwhelming, guys.
By what to do.
I know all of you grow. Like, literally, I think everybody in here has
I have so much admiration for growers. It's really, what are you trying to do?
I'm showing the
the leaf? It's not turn an angle? It's reflecting. We'll have to upload a picture.
All right.
We'll upload a picture to somewhere. Say, what is this? Upload that to Instagram.
It's
Ask
not
somebody.
white.
It's not white. It's kind of brownish.
No,
Right?
the whatever is the problem. It's
Yep.
sort of a lighter green, not white. Yellowy green. Anyway.
But hey, it's the adventure has begun.
Uh-huh.
The adventure has begun, and Wednesday we're going to get an amazing start.
5 of 6 making it is good, Dave.
What's that?
5 of 6 making it is good, Dave. It's like raising kids in the 1800s.
5 of 6. That's right. Well, you got to do 9. That way you got 6 to take care of you when you're old. 5 of 6.
So
hey, it's better than 4.5 dead mice.
Yeah,
like we
it is
had
better.
like that other story about
It's true.
CBD and toxicity to the liver in that
Yeah.
study. But yeah, 5 out of 6 was not bad, and actually it was pretty good. It was a Tahoe OG, wasn't too
Rocks.
bad.
We got to put rocks in the bottom. We're getting lots of great advice.
Well, we're going to take all of this advice. We're going to say all of these folks
Smart pots.
said,
good soil.
Jason, welcome. Cold pressed neem oil for mold. Interesting. See, what do you know, Jeremy? Have you heard anything about this issue? We had a discussion on Twitter about this week about neem oil and cannabis hypermesis syndrome. That there might be a connection to that there's some people have an allergy to neem oil and there's similar symptoms. And there's some people that say, no, it's not the same. It's a different kind of thing. It's definitely something else. So, but I definitely have heard of neem oil and its uses for mold. I basically, great, fantastic. I knew it was good for something. It's natural. I thought it was a pesticide. I guess I misunderstood, but I knew that it was a good thing. I guess mold technically is a pest, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't want
fungus, a fungi. So cool. We have so much. Oh, cod liver oil into the soil. Oh my God. We got to write all these down. We're going to do a list. We're going to go down the list on Wednesday. We're going to do a Sling Studio shoot out on our yard. We were thinking about doing it live.
What?
Should we go live on Wednesday morning?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Never mind. We'll go live right after because I'm going to set it on auto switch and go for it.
Oh, good.
Anyway, yeah, we got it. Anyway, we're very excited. We confirmed it today, guys. We have an interview on Wednesday. We're going to get advice on our new babies, and we're going to have a super special, another revolutionary, Reefer Revolutionary segment on Sunday with this interview. So stay tuned for that next week. Make sure you subscribe, get notifications, ring that bell for when we do go live. Went live twice this week with the hearings, guys. Had a lot of fun. With folks who don't usually make it on Sundays. So I like to try to go live during the week. So make sure you ring that bell, whatever platform you're on. We are multi-streaming on Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, DLive, and Weed TV, the Cannabis Media Network. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, do what you do there. Thumbs up, bells, lemons. Lemons, they get fruit. They give fruit over on DLive. Hello, DLive.
I'll take all the fruit.
Hearts or whatever on Periscope, whatever you are. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week at 4:20, but don't go anywhere. It's time for the afterburn. We're going to go into the Marijuana Smoke Theater, the MST 420 Theater, and hotbox the mainstream media and their marijuana coverage. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in a couple minutes. Free the plant, free the people. Pot for peace. BRB.